Oh, hello YouTube, this is Thomas Judge back once again with another installment of my ongoing series, which is specifically chronicling my retro gaming emulation journey, what I learnt and how I learnt it. Do note this series is not technically a guide of how to do it. The internet has lots of places for that that go into way more technical depth than anything I'll cover in this channel, but this is a chronicle of my journey, what I learnt, how I learnt it, and kind of the emotional steps I went through on the way. Above all, I'm going to cover and discuss all the stuff that wasn't part of the normal mechanisms and channels that I use to learn about retro emulation, and in that sense, this is more a guide of how to fuck around, find out, and learn how to do it. Today's video is going to be a relatively philosophical one. It's not going to be one about specific game emulation per se, or any technical configurations, or even devices, but we'll dive into it in a second. The one last thing I'll say just before we start is that I will not be providing links to any ROMs whatsoever in this series. So today's video is about a simple topic, but also a topic that I think is a major problem within the retro gaming community, and that is backlog anxiety. Backlog anxiety is something that I would define as just the feeling of pressure or stress or anxiety that someone gets when they look at the huge backlog of video games that they have to play. This is, I suppose, more prevalent in the retro community because in the retro community, when you start, the numbers of ROMs that you can get hold of very easily is huge. I previously did a video talking about some of the sketchy plug and play devices that are very easy and very cheap and very affordable within the community, and those have tens of thousands of ROMs. I bought one that apparently had 114,000 games on it. It didn't, but it had 48,000 games on it. And that immediately is a massive backlog to consider. But even those people that don't have retro gaming backlogs, just have modern backlogs on Steam, or even just via having Games Pass, that's a huge backlog of games that can feel quite stressful and quite overwhelming. And what I want to talk about today is a 3 or 4 stage approach, which I've come to that are tips that helped me get over my backlog anxiety, to stop worrying about finishing games and getting through the backlog, and to kind of learn to enjoy this hobby all over again. And here we're looking at a website called howlongtobeat.com, or HLTB if you prefer. And what this website is a really useful website both for curating and logging your backlog, but also especially for understanding how long your backlog will take to complete. So as you can see here, how long to beat, you can catalog your gaming collection. I don't really know how you're meant to import your Steam games, but whatever. See if a potential game has got enough time that you can sink into it to make it worth it. This is the critical bullet point here. Find out just how long your backlog will take to complete. Estimate how long your current game will last. And if you want to be competitive, compare your game times to other players. I'm going to just talk about this for a few minutes, but before I do, I will point out, yes, I'm aware that there are lots of other similar sorts of websites, like I think there's one called Backlogger and things like that. Of course, there are other ones around, but How Long to Beat is the one that I use, and I think it's really, really good. Let's just scroll down, and what it'll do, it will just show you all the different things going on in the last 48 hours, but let's grab a couple of games here. So let's have a look at Clair Obscura. This is kind of what it does. If you pick a particular game, it will tell you how many people are playing it right now, how many people have it on their backlogs, how many are going through it a second time, how many quit halfway through, scores, etc., etc. It's got a little bit of blurb on it and so on. But ultimately, the important part is this bit here. It takes 28 and a half hours to finish the main story. If you pick up on a lot of the side quests, which is, I guess, kind of how I tend to play games, 44 hours. If you want to absolutely 100% it, 66 hours. And then it has an average of the playstyles. It also shows you the progress of them by, as you can see here, by platform, speed runs. There's a variety of different things here. So you've got the single player average, median, rushed, leisurely, etc. Speed runs, as you can see here, the various ratings, the scores, the platforms it's on, all this kind of stuff. Let me just close that advert. All this kind of stuff is just really helpful. It's really interesting. It's really useful, I personally think. If you're interested in a particular game, and this one, of course, is Clair Obscura, then what you can do is you just go on here. I don't have an account, but you can still go on here, look at the information, and make your own list for it. Let's go back to the main page. As I said, I actually don't have an account for How Long to Beat, and the reason for that is I largely don't have online accounts for pretty much anything, unless it's absolutely mandatory, like Xbox Live or Steam. But this is why I'm not on Facebook, I'm not on Instagram, I'm not on TikTok. I don't do any of those sorts of things. I avoid social media and I avoid really accounts and stuff like this, partly because I don't really have the emotional or psychological disposition to be in a community of any kind, be that a Discord or whatever. It doesn't really suit me. So as a result, the way I tend to use it is I would go up here and I would pick a game. So let's pick a game that I like. Enslaved. I mentioned this several times before. You don't have to press return. You just type in enslaved, and it immediately just shows you the options that come up. Two options have come up here. We've got the main game, Enslaved Odyssey to the West, and then we've got the DLC, which, by the way, is no longer something you can purchase on the PlayStation 3 store, at least, which is a bit frustrating. I've yet to check that on Xbox Series, but we'll see. What I could do and what I normally do here is I look at the score here and go, right, it takes about 9 hours, and 9 hours is what I would assume it would take me to finish. Obviously, if I had an account, I could add this game to my profile, or as we just saw, you can dive into it and have a look and go, right, this is what's going on in Enslaved. Have a look at all the various bits and pieces, who's playing it, what's going on, the platforms, how people quit it, etc., etc., etc. Let's go back to the main page. If you do set up if you set up a login and you, for example, log in specifically, then what you can do is actually have your own backlog in here that tracks everything. You can add all your new games to it and so on and so forth. And it will do all the adding up of how long it will take to finish your game and your play style and all these sorts of things. And as you can see here, you enter your Steam ID and it'll work out all the same figures for your Steam account and everything in your Steam library, whether or not it's installed or not. So pretty cool, pretty useless. Sorry, pretty cool, pretty useful. And yeah, it's just got a lot of interesting stuff on this site. As you can see, create an account to manage your games. In-depth stats and tracking. If you're into that sort of stuff, go for it. Again, I kind of avoid it because I think I would get a little bit too obsessed with this. And as well as that, like I say, I don't really like being part of a comparative community where you can share and compare what you're doing with other human beings because I find that personally a bit problematic and a bit difficult, to be honest. Um, but yeah, so what I'll show you now is what I do. And here we have, almost predictably, a Google Sheet. This is a Google Sheet capturing my entire current game library for generation 8 and 9. And it's on my own personal Google Cloud, my own personal hard drive. And this is what I use to control and keep a track of my own backlog. Right now we're on the PS5 tab. As you can see, all the games are on the left, organized alphabetically. In the second column, it says whether or not it's a PS5 game or not. The reason for that is the majority of this is Generation 8, so PS4 games, but I do have some Generation 9 PS5 games in there. You'll see then I have the how long to beat score. That's simply from going on the website, the way that I just showed you, and finding out the average playtime, sticking that in there. And then the final column is literally just notes. So for example, here, this game is a Dark Pictures Anthology game. There's some more Dark Pictures Anthology games here. And yeah, I just make a note of that there. I will point out not every single game has a how long to beat score. So here we have Project Tower with a gap here because it doesn't have a how long to beat score. But most of them will be on here, and it's close enough for me. Some of the games are in green, and that means that I've played them and I finished them. Other games are in red, which means that I played them and I quit at some point. As you can see, the vast majority of these are in black. In other words, I haven't played them at all. So there is a video on my channel of me going through about 150 PS4 games in my collection. I think I have more than that now. As you can see, my current collection is 209 games. And as you can see here, this number here is the total figure. This is a formula that I put in here. So this is 3,281 hours of gaming. Keep in mind the games that I've played I just put as non-applicable. So these are all games that I haven't played, 3,281 hours. If we move over to Xbox One and Xbox Series X, so that's Generation 8 and Generation 9. Again, similar thing, names, whether or not it's a ninth generation game, how long to beat, and then the score. And as you can see here, there are loads here that I haven't played. I think I play slightly more on the Xbox than I have on the PlayStation, but loads that I haven't played. And again, the total score there is 1,500 hours of gaming. Let's have a look at my Nintendo Switch. This is especially impressive, I think. So what I do on this is I have the title on the left, and then I state whether or not I own it digitally or physically, or in some cases both. And then I also have the how long to beat score. In some cases, that's either blank or it's done and completed. If a game is something I own digitally and I haven't played it, I might make a note if it's available physically, because what might happen is I might play it digitally and then decide I really, really like it and I want it physically. Again, as you can see here, the majority of these haven't been played. Some of them I did give up on. Bot Gaiden is a good game to start with, but eventually you just give up. Carrion, similarly, was a great field, but essentially I just got lost way too many times. Um, some of these are completed on my Xbox 360, others I quit halfway. As you can see, I kind of make a note of all the ones that I played and all the ones that I have. There are quite a lot that I have here. In terms of Nintendo Switch, we are looking at 288 games with a total backlog time of 4,500 hours. Moving over to the deck, what you'll see here is I've got again the titles on one side. I've then got location, and this is to really indicate whether or not it's installed on my deck's internal memory, whether or not it's not installed at all, or whether or not it's on the SD card. So as you can see, these are the options that we have. There's also a few that are installed on the Steam Deck desktop as well. And so this lets me know where they are just in terms of memory management. And again, this should have how long to beat scores, but I haven't actually got around to doing that as yet. And I've got over 90 in my Steam backlog. Oh, it's terrifying, isn't it, really? Okay, it would be a very fair question for you to ask why I do this, why I don't have a how long to beat account and login. Like I say, it just doesn't suit my personal temperament. I would prefer to have a Google Doc that I control and that has sort of limited utility, but at least does exactly all the things that I need it to do in all the ways that I want to do it. What we're looking at right now is the Google Sheet for my Steam Deck build. In fact, this is for Steam Deck build A. So you see here, I've got my 3DS games, I've got my 32X games, my Thomas Wave games, Dreamcast games, and the list goes on. Um, I do this with all of my games, in fact. And if you've looked at my video on how to have a perfectly refined and curated ROM library, this should be kind of familiar in terms of the tabs at the bottom. But as you can see, I've got them all written in here. I've done the same for my Steam Deck Build B, which is PS2 and GameCube and Wii games. And I've also got the same for my Steam Deck Build C as well, which we're going to dive into in a few videos' time when I actually start showing my Steam Deck. But if you look at it here, for example, the SNES, I've got 339 games. Overall, I've got over 3,000 ROMs on Steam Deck Build A, as you can imagine. And yeah, that's just kind of the nature of how I curate and keep all my games. All right, and with that out of the way, the rest of this video is just going to be just some random game footage just to keep you occupied while I talk over it and espouse essentially my backlog philosophy and the reason why, whilst I used to be anxious about my backlog, I no longer am. Hopefully, those screen captures that I just showed you, sharing my personal Google Sheets and a variety of other things, hopefully you appreciate the transparency and hopefully it hasn't overwhelmed you. There is a lot there. There is a lot. I have over 3,500 ROMs on my build A for my Steam Deck or for my retro configuration. I have getting close to about 700 ROMs on build B and about 200 ROMs on build C. And that's purely for my retro gaming per se. In terms of my personal physical games and physical library, I have several hundred games on PS3 and Xbox 360. And in addition to that, you've just seen my Generation 8 and Generation 9 backlogs on Steam Deck, PS5, across the entire spectrum. So there is a lot. There is a lot. I think it's probably fair to say I probably own about 5,000 video games, physically and digitally. So why aren't I anxious? Well, over the last year especially, there have been a variety of different things that have happened that have kind of changed my perspective. And we're going to talk about it a lot here. And then the last video of this series, probably video like 19 or 20 or something like that, which is going to be an epilogue video, I'm going to talk through kind of where I've gotten to with gaming and why I'm chilling out a lot in terms of my approach to gaming and why my approach has evolved and why this year is very much a watershed moment for me. But let's focus on today. Today I'm just going to talk you through my approach to backlogs and why I get less anxious. So in no particular order. Firstly, don't try to complete anything 100%. It's very tempting to try to 100% complete your games and try to chase PlayStation trophies and Xbox Live achievements and things like that. And I used to do that. I used to play a game. So let's say I play something like Halo Reach, and I play it through, and I get all the normal achievements, and then I'd go into the achievements, and I would look through all the ones I didn't get, and I would work out how to get them, and I would go back and I would achievement farm. I didn't often get all the achievements. I very rarely have platinumed the game or got all the Xbox Live achievements. But what I would do is, let's say I've got 400 achievements from playing the game, I might go back and spend another 5 or 10 hours just farming another 2 or 300 gamer score or achievements in there, just for the sake of it. Because I don't play online and because I don't play with other humans, multiplayer achievements are essentially utterly beyond my ability to get. So I'm kind of reconciled, or I was kind of reconciled, to not having 100% of the achievements on any games that I played. But at the same time, I was sinking a lot of time into just getting the achievements, just making that number bigger. And that's not helpful. And in fact, I'd already made a psychological kind of demarcation in my head that I wasn't going to worry about achievements that were multiplayer related achievements. It was only another step further to be like, actually, I'm not going to worry about achievements at all. And when I stopped chasing achievements and trophies and trying to 100% complete everything, I just had much more fun. Even on some games like fighting games or FPS games or things like that, I used to want to complete it with every character on every difficulty setting. I no longer want to do that. Well, I say that, I mean, obviously, I would like to do that, but I'm no longer bothered that I don't. And I'll talk in a few minutes about some games where I still have that approach. But what it means now is I play a game, I finish a game. I might play a little bit more if I fancy it, but the minute I don't want to, I just stop. I'm not chasing any kind of benchmark or criterion to say this is when the game is over. On that note, play it on easy if normal isn't fun. I always play games on normal mode. There was a period I used to play it on hard mode or whatever the level above normal was. So if you're playing something like Gears of War, this would be hardcore as opposed to insane. And even now on Gears of War, I play hardcore because I play lots and lots of Gears of War. But on most games, I just go in now and I just play on normal. I play the default difficulty under all circumstances. And for some games, not many, but for some games, even that's a bit much. What I tend to do is once it stops being fun at normal, rather than quitting the game, if the issue is the difficulty of the game rather than anything else, then I drop it down to easy. Or what a friend of mine refers to as journalist mode, as if he's some kind of video game reviewer. He's not, by the way. Um, there's no shame in doing that. After all, who cares? The whole point of playing games is to have fun. And if you enjoy playing them, it's okay to play them on easy. Speaking of which, if you're not enjoying a game and it's not fun, then just quit the game. This took me personally quite a while to get to. There was a case of a game which I really, really just wasn't enjoying. And I just couldn't force myself to stop it until I had to change my perspective. I had to change my mindset and go, actually, it's not fun. This isn't homework. I don't have to do it. And if a game stops being fun, drop it down to easy or play it in a different way, play with a different character, do something else. If it's still not fun, then just stop playing it. I think part of the reason that I personally at my age find it hard or found it hard to stop playing games halfway through was because when I was young, and we're talking about retro gaming, so let's be honest, we're talking about nostalgia as much as anything else. When I was young, I used to enjoy playing a game. I'd only get one game every 4 or 5 months because that's how often people bought games back then. Games were expensive and there weren't that many released. So you'd pick up a game and then you might end up playing it for 3 or 4 months. And quitting a game halfway through was a real, yeah, it was a real failure in a lot of ways. It was a, well, I'm now stuck until I can get a new game, which won't be for months from now. But that's not the case. We have an overabundance of content. So if a game isn't fun, it's fine to just put it to one side. That said, the counterpoint is this is don't just bounce off things. Don't just pick up a game, play for half an hour, bounce off it, and then go, oh, I can't be bothered, it's not fun, or I haven't unlocked something, or I'm finding this bit annoying. Most games are worth sticking with for a while. I remember I was playing Into the Breach, which is a tactical roguelike game, which I absolutely love. And Into the Breach, I'll be honest, I was about 7 or 8 hours in, and I kept on saying to my friends when we talked about it, I was like, I think this is shit. And I'm not sure, but I think this game is shit. It's just not very good at all. It's just, I don't know what's going on, and I think it's shit. And then I got past the 7 or 8 hour mark, and it suddenly clicked, and oh my God, I loved it. I absolutely adored it. I think I ended up sinking about 100 hours into that game. It's a good example because I didn't actually completely 100% the game. I was playing it on easy because normal was just too hard. But what I did is I finished it with every single configuration of mechs and every single weapon configuration and so on and so forth, barring one, because one of them just had a massive price to entry. You had to like have 25 medals to get into it and so on. I only had two and that sort of thing. But again, I really enjoyed it, even though I didn't 100% it. And I played it on easy and it was fine. And I only really enjoyed it. And I've got loads of fond memories of that game. I only really enjoyed it because I didn't quit. But that said, you know, if you don't enjoy a game, you should quit it. If you play a game and straight away you don't like it, give it some credit. Don't necessarily just bounce off things. That's like channel surfing, and it's not a healthy or useful way of looking at your backlog. That said, don't feel you have to play everything. I have loads of franchises I don't play. I don't play any sports games. I can't stand Grand Theft Auto. I don't like driving games unless they're futuristic driving games. There are loads of sort of genres and types of games that I'm just not interested in. Um, if you've been watching the series so far, you would have seen my approach towards my Super Console X Pro, where I bought it thinking it had 114,000 games on it. I plugged it in, it had 48,000 games on it, and I deleted about 44,000 of them. And that's fine. You probably haven't even blinked when you thought about that. But the truth is, had I been a slave to the backlog, I would have wanted to play all 48,000 games. But obviously, none of us are really quite like that. So what I did, I went through, I got rid of the consoles I don't like, and I got rid of the games I wasn't interested in. Don't get me wrong, I was still left with several thousand games. But that approach of refining and getting rid of things you don't like applies to everything. There's no need to try to get a ROM library of all 3,500 PS2 games ever released in the lifetime of PS2. I've got, I think, maybe 300 PS2 games, if that, because those are the ones I'm interested in. And 300 is enough. Another tip I'd recommend, and this might even be something I start doing on YouTube if anyone's interested in watching it, is I give myself what I call 5 by 5 holidays. So that is a holiday where I take a week off work. So I have 5 working days off. And I set myself the task of playing 5 days in five. Sorry, start again. I set myself the task of playing 5 games in 5 days. Now, to do that, you've got to use the HLTB website. You've got to use how long to beat because there's no point picking a game with an 80-hour completion time. That's not going to work. But what I do is I go through my backlog and I find games that have maybe a 5 hour completion time or even a 7 or 8 hour completion time. One thing I'd love to do at one point is to actually do a Call of Duty run through and do 5 Call of Duty games in 5 days. It would be intense, don't get me wrong, but the campaign's what, 6, 7 hours a piece? I could smash those. There's a bunch of other games as well. I showed you Enslaved early in the video, 9 hours. It would be a busy day, but the way that I treat these 5 by 5 weeks that I take off is I literally treat it like a working day. On the Monday, I get up at about 8:30, I have my breakfast, put on a shirt and tie, and I sit down in front of my TV, and I game. And I game for a full 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, whatever it takes. Finish at the end of the day, and the next day start again in the next game. It's a lot of fun. And obviously, if you've got friends and family, you can kind of make a bit of a thing of it, tell people what you're doing, keep them updated, get people to come over with food or to, watch or keep you company, that sort of thing. I personally enjoy doing them. I haven't done any in the last couple of years, but I plan to start again very soon, before the end of the year. Finally, there's something we need to talk about, which is the idea of forever games. We all have forever games. Forever games are the games you just default to whenever you've just got 20 minutes spare here, half an hour here, or if you're just feeling down and tired and you can't sleep and you just want to play for a bit. Everyone has a forever game. Some people have multiple forever games. Often forever games are online games, so it could be something like Overwatch, or it could be something like World of Warcraft, or Destiny even, or Destiny 2, technically, I guess. We all get forever games, and whatever forever game you get, you're making the decision that you are going to have a transaction where your time is going to be exchanged for investing into this game. There's nothing wrong with that. It's always good to have some comfort food gaming on the go. In the past, I've always had a Wipeout, HD Fury, got every single track in gold, so very happy with that. But I didn't finish it on every difficulty, I just go through it all. Gears of War 2, Horde, with a friend of mine, we actually managed to, as a two-man team, we managed to finish Horde Insane up to wave 50. And Streets of Rage 4, which I have currently played on pretty much every difficulty with every character and unlocked every single thing. I have 100%ed the game because I always pick up play it. I've got it on every console that I own. I love it. I'm never more than five, finger taps away from being able to access Streets of Rage 4. But I've kind of got tired of those. I haven't played Wipeout in God maybe a year or two. I haven't played Gears of War in at least 2 or 3 years. And so there's a few other games that I'm hoping to make my forever games going forward. I'm currently looking at Prince of Persia from 2008. I'm looking at Enslaved, which is why I was showing it you earlier, and even the Don't Nod game, Remember Me. I'm thinking of using that as a forever game, so I can loop through the campaign and the story again and again and again. What you have as your forever game doesn't matter, but there's no harm in having a forever game. Bouncing from one game to the next all the time is emotionally and intellectually taxing. Sometimes it's nice to have comfort food. The same way it's nice to have nice background music or comfort viewing on TV. You don't always have to do something new. You don't always have to be pushing the envelope. So pick a forever game, or two, or three, and just have that as your downtime, sort of your gaming holiday away from your gaming holiday. That's what I do, and it has definitely helped my mood, my temperament, and my approach towards this. Well, these are my closing thoughts now, although to be honest, this is probably still going to be another 5 or 10 minutes. And this comes from what I just mentioned about having comfort gaming the same way you might have comfort food or comfort watching. And that comfort watching example is a really important one because for me, this is the big paradigm shift that made me view my backlog in a completely different way. Don't view it as a backlog. It's that simple. Don't view it as a to-do list. Think of your backlog, for want of a better term, as your library. And the reason I say that is think of it more as a Netflix type scenario than a Blockbuster type scenario. Some of you may not know what Blockbuster is. It's like a physical version of Netflix where all the movies were in there on DVDs and even VHS, and they just didn't change, they were static. But my point is that Netflix, I'm in the UK, Netflix UK has about 5,000 movies on it. It has probably about as many documentaries and box sets and kids shows and all that sort of stuff. I have Netflix, but I'm not overwhelmed by the concept of having Netflix. I'm not overwhelmed by my Netflix backlog because what I have is my entire Netflix library of 5,000 movies plus. And within that, I have my list, my Netflix kind of wish list, which has got maybe 100 or 200 things on it. But I'm also not overwhelmed by that because ultimately, in my head, I don't view this as something that I have to get through. My Netflix wishes is something that I just default to when my girlfriend comes over and let's watch something cool. Let's check through the wish list and let's grab the first movie that um, takes our interest. And that's what I view it as a filtered version of the overarching library. I'm not in control of the library, neither are you. Netflix can remove movies and add movies whenever they like. It's not a backlog. It's just a library where you're wandering around like a warrior from ancient Greece picking weapons off a wall before he goes out into battle. That's the best way of thinking about it. It's an arsenal, it's a library, it's a toolbox of things that you can reach into. It's not a set of checklists and box that you need to tick and you need to finish before you die. The truth is, when a lot of us play video games, especially retro video games, the feeling we're trying to recapture is a feeling that we had as children. And the feeling we had as children wasn't a case of we'd come home on a Saturday and our parents would have bought us 300 Mega Drive games. That's not the case. They bought us one, and we would have picked it with some care, and we would have begged and negotiated for it. And when we got it, we had that game at least for a week, more likely for a month, more likely for 2 or 3 months that we were playing it. And then we begged and negotiated and pleaded for the next game. If we're trying to recapture that slightly nostalgic feeling of retro gaming, then the feeling you want to recapture is getting time to sink into one game at a time. Not hundreds, not bouncing off them, not going through your emulation library one evening and trying a different game every 5 minutes for an hour. Yes, you might go through 12 games, but are you really going to tick those off your list? They're not done, and you know that. And also, you haven't really enjoyed yourself, and you know that too. Your backlog isn't a backlog, it's a library. It's just a whole smorgasbord of things you can dip into, and you don't have to tick them all off. You don't have to finish them all. I guess that's the danger of having the HLTB sort of backlog collection account thing, which is another reason why I don't have that. At any point, I can just go into that folder of games that I have, or rather the Google Sheets of games that I have, and I can just delete the column with the completion times on there. I don't because it helps me plan my 5 by 5 weeks. But my point is, they're just a number. It doesn't matter. I should and will just take an interest in the ones that I want to play at any given time. To be honest, for those of you that have been watching my channel for a while prior to this emulation series, this applies to comics as well. Comics are a big thing. I have thousands and thousands of comics. I've got thousands of comics physically, and then obviously I have access to digital libraries through the Marvel app and the DC app. I have access to so many comics, literally tens of thousands of comics. Probably 114,000 comics, probably as many comics as that sketchy plug and play device said that it had games. I'm not overwhelmed by my comics backlog. I do feel a little bit like it'd be a shame if I never got to read all the ones that I want to read, but as a result, I'm going through reading the ones that I want to read. On my channel, I do lengthy read-throughs of particular franchises, be it the Valiant publisher, or be it the Marvel Zombies franchise, or every Thunderbolts comic ever written. That's what I do. I pick something and I go, right, that's what I'm going to read, and I go through all of them, and that's fun. I want to do a Captain America Brewmaker run at some point. If you're not familiar with that because you're a video gamer, then think of it as just turning around one day and going, right, I want to play every Resistance game. Resistance 1, 2, and 3 on PS3, Resistance on PSP, and Burning Skies. Yes, even Burning Skies on PS Vita. Pick what you want to do, jump in, devour that little bit of the video game universe or the comic universe. And that's what I do. And that's probably what you do on Netflix as well. You probably watch something like The Sandman and then watch Dead Boy Detectives because it's all part of the same universe. You didn't watch all of Netflix. You just picked what you wanted out of your library because often we tend to view that as a library, not as an archive, not as a to-do list, and not as a backlog. Finally, the very, very last thing I just want to say, and I'm only going to touch this very briefly because I'm going to do a lot more on this in the last video, is just accept that you can't play them all. Stop adding to your backlog. Life is short. Just enjoy it. More on that in the very last video in this series, but until then, thanks everyone for listening. Thanks everyone for hopefully paying attention. I hope you found it useful. What are your tips on backlog anxiety? What do you think about it? What are your feelings about it? Did any of these tips resonate at all? Are there any that you disagree with or you think that I should try to approach from a different perspective? Let me know in the comments. Genuinely, this isn't an engagement farming thing. I'm genuinely curious because I'm not on Discord, I'm not on Facebook, I don't really engage with social media, but I would be interested in seeing other people's opinions. And if you're here 12 or 13-minute videos into a very, very dull, tedious series, then you're probably my sort of person. You probably put some thought into it. So let me know. How do you deal with your backlog? Do you view it as a library? Until next time, thanks for watching and stay classy.